It's almost 20 years since Shrek was released, the first animated movie to get Oscars and the meme skin of all times. It has a major impact on nowadays culture and still does not go out of date. The movie about the Green Ogre, which was dubbed postmodern entertainment for adults, has become a cult and has gathered millions of fans around the world. Shrek is the first feature-length cartoon to win an Oscar, as well as a number of other cinematic awards. To get the whole picture of what is happening, we need to get deep into it and start from the beginning. In 1984, Michael Eisner became CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Eisner took Katzenberg with him to head up with Disney Film Division. Katzenberg was in charge of reviving the studio, which was the lowest-grossing major studio at the time. He focused the studio on producing adult comedies with his Touchstone Pictures banner. Katzenberg was also tasked with turning over Disney's Alliance feature animation division, which sparked some controversy within the studio when he personally edited 12 minutes of the completed Disney cartoon, Black Cauldron, shortly after joining the company. Under his leadership, the animation department eventually set out to create some of Disney's most critically acclaimed and most profitable animated films. These films include Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, the first full-length animated film to be nominated for an Academy Award for the Best Picture, Aladdin, and The Lion King. In addition, Katzenberg also struck a deal that marked the beginning of a highly successful partnership between Pixar and Disney, as well as a deal that took Miramax films to Disney. Within the Disney company, especially Roy E. Disney, there were concerns that Katzenberg had put too much faith in the success of Disney's releases in the early 1980s. In 1993, Katzenberg lobbied for the opportunity to become Eisner's deputy, which would mean transferring Frank Wells from the president to vice chairman, to which Eisner replied that Wells would be heard in this scenario and then, according to Katzenberg, reassured him, "If for whatever reason Frank is not here, you are number 2 and I want you to have a job." After a plane crash in 1994, Eisner took over Wells's responsibilities instead of promoting Katzenberg to the vacated presidency. Eisner recalled that Roy Disney, Walt Disney's nephew and Disney board member who, according to Eisner, could be a troublemaker, did not like him at all. I forgot the reason, but Geoffrey probably didn't treat him the way Roy would like to be treated. He told me, "If you make him a president, I will start a proxy fight." Disney board member Stanley Gall said Katzenberg was overwhelmed by his ego and almost pathological need to be important. Jeffrey Katzenberg used Shrek to mock his former boss. Perhaps it was impossible to come up with a more elegant form of revenge, not only to offend the former boss, but the entire industry as a whole, led by Disney. Tensions between Katzenberg, Eisner, and Disney led Katzenberg to leave the company in October that year. Katzenberg filed a lawsuit against Disney to recover money he believed they owed him, and settled an estimated $250 million out of the court. During the trial, Eisner had to admit that he once said to Katzenberg, "I hate this dwarf." And here's a surprise. Lord Farquaad appeared in Shrek. "This is a funny little man. Remember the comment about dwarf?" Those name is pronounced almost the same as, well, you can Google that. This villain's face is, of course, very similar to Eisner's. And Shrek begins with the fact that all the famous Disney characters are thrown into the swamp. Snow White with her dwarfs, Pinocchio and others. The ugly characters in Shrek are quite happy with their ugliness. The musical numbers there lead to the fact that the birds explode and so on. With the help of that unusual storyline, Shrek attracted his viewer in the now distant 2001, and it never stopped 20 years after. Adults and young viewers are still reviewing this extravagant cartoon that carries a well-known message: good always triumphs over evil. But a new wrapper, inverted. The main characters became so popular that in 2010 Shrek received its own star on the Walk of Fame. The Shrek phenomena turned out to be quite simple. People are tired of established, slick stories, and Shrek is not ashamed of himself and his nature. Well, maybe a little. And the girl chooses him not for his appearance and status. What could be better? How did the love story of an ogre and a princess win the audience sympathy? Shrek offers the audience a range of innovative solutions. In the production of the film, its creators used motion capture technology. Cartoon sets new heights for the entire world of animation. A relatively new technology of three-dimensional modeling is brought to a new qualitative level. The visual component of the film tries to catch up with the real world in terms of realism. 30 animators were hired to create the lightning alone. The latest technology was used for processing fur and grass. Spectators accept that innovation favorably. The credibility of the image brings the audience and the characters closer together. The viewer is psychologically ready to immerse himself in the world of a fairy tale because it is so similar in form to the real one. Shrek has given wide popularity to many techniques in animation. Heroes overly similar to voice actors is one of them. A viewer who is familiar with an actor will quickly feel sympathy for his character, for example, Shrek and Mike Myers. Shrek distinguished himself not only by novelties in the field of computer graphics, but also in the way the creators presented the already familiar tropes of characters. Except that Shrek is an inverted tale where the classic antagonist becomes the main character, Shrek himself is initially a neutral character. He lives for his own pleasures, separated from society, and does not try to become a part of it. He's actually being dragged into the maelstrom of events. The society, represented by Lord Farquaad, invited Shrek into his ranks, so later then can make him an outcast. Fiona was originally a member of society, even a member of its privileged part. But society, in the person of her parents, also made her an outcast, because of which she ceased to perceive herself as a part of society, although her upbringing and attitudes told her that she should. And now, these two outcasts are involuntarily met in absolute extraordinary conditions. And according to the law of genre and human psychology in general, joint adventures bring people together, even not always in a romantic way. Donkey. Oddly enough, Donkey is also an outcast. He's deviant, was not born like anyone else. Everyone wants to take advantage of him and still expel the donkey from their ranks. But even despite such an attitude towards himself, he remains sincere, cheerful, and hopes to find his squad. Dragon. Also an outcast hermit, a lady who, like Donkey, passionately wanted to find someone who would understand her and would not run away from her in fear or attack her. Dragon and Donkey, just like Shrek and Fiona, find each other not randomly at all. It would seem that they are so different, but no, not at all. In true love, neither appearance nor size plays a role. This is the main message. And they are very similar inside. Puss in Boots. While here it would seem that he lives on an equal footing with people, earns himself milk with Valerian, and in general does not know any worries, but no. He as much an outcast as the rest of the main characters in the franchise. He was just able to adapt better than others. But as we will be shown in the prequel, Puss in Boots fits perfectly into the gang of losers because he is just like them, deviant. Let's take a look at the image of the main characters and the princess again. The authors convey an important message to the modern viewer through the nature of the characters. Shrek is imperfect. He is rude and hot-tempered ogre. However, he successfully takes on an absolutely heroic role. Shrek saves the princess and finds true love. Often the viewer associates himself with the main character of the book or film. Shrek truly sets an example for the audience. It shows that a person does not need to be perfect to be happy. It's okay to have weaknesses and fears. As Shrek feels like an outcast, so many people experience loneliness. Through the experiences of the ogre, the viewer becomes aware of his own feelings. Ultimately, self-acceptance is the only key to success. Shrek is a truly revolutionary film. The film does not impose its morals or values on the audience. It has an almost therapeutic effect and only offers topics for discussion. In addition, the cartoon significantly reimagines the concept of women in popular culture. In the beginning, Fiona is shown as fragile and beautiful girl. However, the image is completely transformed over time. The princess turns out to be more versatile and more energetic. She fights well and knows how to have fun. The form of the ogre most closely matches her true self. Fiona's story destroys stereotypes about female role and attractiveness. Girls themselves choose how to be realized in life. The concept of beauty in its typical meaning is rejected. After all, it is not the appearance that makes the person attractive, but the inner feeling of oneself. Using Fiona as an example, long before Disney began to create strong and brave princesses, we saw that a female character in a cartoon does not have to be defenseless and incapable of anything. Shrek was a hit. It has earned almost $485 million in box office, and naturally the sequel was not far off. The screenwriters of the first film, Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, insisted the film would be traditional fairy tale, but after disagreements with the producers, they left the project and were replaced by director Andrew Adamson. His writing of the film was inspired from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, with the help of the co-director of the film, who had spent most of the film's production in Northern California, while Adamson spent most of the time with the voice actors in Glendale, California. DreamWorks began production in 2001, which was actually before the first film was even completed. DreamWorks made sure that there was something new to see in Shrek II by putting more human characters in the film with the use of fuse system that dealt with the hair and fur to improve its appearance and movement. The setup for all the characters was done in the first 3 years of production. Puss in Boots required a whole new set of tools in the film to handle his fur, belt and feather plume in his hat. The characters also required an upgrade in the fur shader for his introduction in the film. I would like to note that this whole truly beautiful story is framed in a wonderful graphics, which after 2 decades does not lose its appearance and does not go out of date. Indeed, at the same time of the film's release, the graphics were advanced and very complex to execute. I will never forget the moment when I was first told how the fur on donkey was animated. Fur. This short little countless hairs on the donkey animated separately. It's amazing. It is immediately evident that the work was done not only responsibly, but also with love. Shrek II is often called the perfect sequel, and there's a reason for that. Please do not confuse perfect sequel with perfect movie. There are no perfect films. Why did Shrek II come so close to such a high rank? Everything is very simple. It's not trying to make a fool of the viewer, trying to impose on him only familiar images and repetitive jokes. It shows the character's world from a different perspective and provides answers to previously open questions. Since Fiona is a princess, where is her kingdom and who are her parents? Why did they choose to lock their daughter in the tower, etc.? We got a lot of new characters that not draw the viewer's attention to themselves in the film, but perfectly complement it and turn what is happening into a mood storm of emotions and colors. Shrek 2 offers the viewer more locations and characters, and they are all well designed and have pretty good exposure. Most of the key moments from Shrek 2 could be perfectly coherent short films, like the scene of greeting.
Stop it! Everything's gonna be
a disaster. There is no way
you can do this.
But I really
don't
want to be
Or lunch.
Shrek!
Fiona!
Mom!
Harold! Donkey!
I mentioned Puss in the Boots earlier. Now, King Harold, Queen Lillian, Prince Charming, and Fairy Godmother. These characters are fundamentally different from our crazy bunch of deviants. They form the very society that first invited the main characters into their rings and then, just as cordially, kicked them out in the cold. These characters are not just members but also the core of the society. They, like no one else, can influence the masses and establish order. After all, they are the head of everything that happens. King Harold, typical alarmist. And then there is no doubt who is in charge of this married couple. But despite everything, he loves Fiona. Even her transformation into the monster does not scare him as much as it might seem at first glance. He is afraid for his daughter, wishes her happiness, but at the same time he is afraid of the fairy godmother for obvious reasons. And surprisingly, of the people in the kingdom itself. After all, even though he is a king, he still can lose credibility, and with it he can lose his beloved wife and daughter, which is unbearable for him. But Harold changes. Like any loving parent, he accepts his daughter and her decisions and gives in, thus earning even more love and trust of his own people. Lillian. Here she is, a woman who can do anything. The real ruler of the kingdom. She's morally and emotionally resilient, judicious, loving and caring. She looks at everything from the top to bottom, but without self-confidence and contempt. She is the keeper of the hearth in the truest sense of these words. She intervenes when she thinks that the situation is about to get out of control. If it was not for her, this stable power, it is unlikely that the conflict between Fiona and Harold, and even more so Harold and Shrek, could have been resolved. Fairy Godmother, absolute power and relative evil. I know, sounds confusing, but I'll explain. The real power is not even in the palace. It is in the favor of people. No wonder Harold was so worried. After all, the people praise and admire the fairy godmother. She is their idol. She is the leader of happiness and the sale of the dreams to the masses. She can afford everything, from huge factories and personal guards to the destruction of anything objectionable with complete impunity. Why relative evil? Because she herself doesn't need the throne. She could just seize power by force or by popular vote. But no, she's doing it for charming. She, in her own opinion, does the necessary evil to make her beloved child happy. While the gears are spinning, the strings are connected, right? Prince Charming. Here's the situation is rather strange. If you discard the obvious ruffle on the topic that Charming is naturally a mockery of the Disney princess and their impeccability, it always seems to me that the fairy godmother has created Charming by magic, as if she couldn't have children on her own, and she had to create the perfect heir, the perfect son. That's why she tried so hard, despite everything, to make him happy. It's scary and very sad to realize. Charming as a character rushes somewhere between outcasts and rulers. He does not fully reflect the position of either one and does not want to belong to ordinary citizens. He tries to be who he is not, and therefore is left with nothing. And it really can be regretted at some point. After all, he really believes that he deserves the throne, and he works for the good, and someday he will get his happily ever after. Shrek II still plays with the expectation of the audience, but already on a completely different level. This is level 99 of Ruffle, and it only adds more points to the picture. For example, when Shrek drinks the potion, the clouds are gathering, it starts to rain, and now it would seem that this is a transformation. But no, it's just an ordinary rain.
I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Oh, sweet sister, mother of mercy. I'm melting. I'm melting.
It's just the rain, Donkey.
The delayed waiting effect does a job, and on the way to the goal, the authors managed to throw in a couple more jokes.
Bet my bottom.
I'm coming, Elizabeth.
Donkey? Are you all right?
Hey, boss. Let's shave him.
Likewise, at the end, when we're in tense anticipation, here Fiona will kiss Shrek and they will remain humans. But no, love is higher than society expectations and the main characters remain ogres.
With the ogre I married.
Whatever happens, I must not cry.
Shrek 2 is a great addition to the first part. They just need to be watched one by one. That's the beauty of it, because the story is so well told that it literally seems to go on without delay. The world of Shrek literally turns from a shack in a swamp into an amazing world of colors, different people, a palace, and so on. And just like in the first part, Shrek is literally forcibly pulled out of his comfort zone and moved to the society and space in which he will be priori and outcast. Society seems to lure him in order to separate him from itself later. But even that is not the focus of these two films. Just the same, they draw the viewer's attention to the fact that whoever the society think he was, Shrek and Fiona as well, will always choose the present in exchange for stupid imitation of those who consider them monsters. They choose friendship, love, warm relations, and honor and dignity. Shrek 1 and 2 is such a fortunate combination of circumstances, technology, labor, and restless energy, which has given us many interesting trends and branches in culture and creativity. I know Shrek by heart. I watch it at least 3 or 4 times a year and adore it with all my heart. If it suddenly happened that in some wonderful, unimaginable, absolutely incomprehensible way to me you did not watch Shrek, make sure to take a look. It's definitely worth it. And now it's a perfect timing to subscribe to my channel, like this video and leave a comment as it helps my channel to grow. And watch only good movies that make you believe in a fairy tale.
Go for the moon. Go for the moon.
for the moon.